have a central peer. We've got to know whether it's in tax this way or that way.
Yeah. Just as they do, you know, for in many other countries and in many other places, which have different regimes, and is easily done. But one of the big advantages of independence is that we can think afresh. You know, the tax code that we live under is just enormously complicated, you know, vastly complicated. One of the things that independence does is to say, well, look, let's take on what we've got, because you do that, and then let's think how we should do this properly. You know? There's actually a real generational opportunity in almost every part of our national life to say, how would we like this done? What's the best way to do it? I know, I don't think anybody's friendly with a tax lawyer, but I know a tax lawyer, you know, who's really enthusiastic about saying you should start getting with this. You know, tax doesn't have to be that complicated. You can actually start again and say, let's do this simply and clearly, so that every one of us understands it. I'm not a supporter of the American flat tax system, but it has an advantage. Everybody knows how much they pay. I mean, I suspect that I'm not going to do it, but I asked everybody in this room how much tax they paid last year. I doubt if anybody could, maybe one or two people could, say exactly what they paid. But that's the money that connects you with the state. That's your contract with the state. You pay the tax, you know, and the government delivers certain things. But actually, we don't know how much we paid, and we don't know what we're getting back. So we need to think all these things again. I don't think it's complicated to separate systems.
So there would be an intention to start with pretty cheap.
I think the intention is to say, how could we do this better? And I think that's one of the big things in independence. It's not how me as a member of the SNP wants to do things. It's about how us as a country says, could we do things better? Could we do things that are appropriate for a small, wealthy, talented country in Europe? How would we do these things, and how would we do them well? At present, a lot of things that happen are not decided on in that way. They're decided on in an example is a written constitution. Now, almost every other country has a written constitution and a Bill of Rights. It tells you as a citizen, that's your rights, that's what happens. We don't have anything like that. So we don't have any contract with the state that guarantees those things. And that's what normal people have. I always think of independence as normality. That's what everybody else has. Some odd way we've not had it. And now we can try and get it. Because there are people there, and there will be two bases in Scotland, one east and one west, and that will be one there. So that absorbs some of that's a conventional force, it's not a nuclear force, but there's an opportunity to take it up. But you will also have to focus on getting alternative employment of some sort. Now, you know, if you're actually going to expand the energy industries, that's a possibility. There will be work to be done. But the vast majority of people in Scotland do not support weapons of mass destruction. And in addition, a small country of 5 million people would have no business keeping those weapons. You know, I mean, actually, it would be illegal under international law so to do, right? But there's also, you know, the general question that if something is wrong and you don't want it there, you have to do something. And then you have to try and solve the consequences of it, and the work will be done. You know, it's no accident that at the last election in 2011, the northernmost constituency in Scotland is represented by Labour is Dunbar in Helensburgh, right? It's Jackie Bailey's constituency. That's as far north as Labour goes. And that constituency might well have fallen to the SNP, but I think the big issue was the base issue, and that's why it didn't happen. But we've got to confront that very honestly with people and say, you know, we don't want that, but we're going to have to negotiate a way out of it, and there will have to be alternative employment.
There's a lot of jobs there.
Yeah. And we have to find alternative jobs. And we have to make, the other thing we have to do is make the economy grow. We've lived for the last 5 years as if there's an inevitability that, you know, that you can't make the economy grow. We have to make this economy grow. There's just no alternative. So we have to get on and doing that, and that should create new jobs as well. Will be in the autumn of 2014. Then the first election in independent Scottish Parliament will be in May 2016. So you have essentially a year and a half of change to undertake. Now, it has been done much faster. You know, that's actually, there are 30 countries in the world who have done it faster than that in the last 50 years. Right? So it's actually a very reasonable period of time. Czechs and Slovaks, what's called the Velvet Divorce, took 6 months, exactly 6 months. You know, in quite a complex tying together, particularly industrially. So that's the time scale. We've also talked about the way in which we're all in this room, we are all European citizens, so we will be negotiating a new deal with Europe from within Europe. No European citizen has ever been forced to leave Europe. Some people want to leave Europe, but no European citizen has ever been forced to do that. So that negotiation is about how we fit into Europe and how we negotiate the final deal. It can be done in that period of time, and the intention would be to do it in that period of time. So May 2016, which is the next scheduled set of elections for Scottish Parliament, will be elections from independent Parliament. Now, there would be lots of things then to do. You're going to have several years of putting in place final legislation, doing things like that, but the process can take place in that time. And I think that's well recognised, and there's lots of examples of it elsewhere. We wouldn't, you see, one of the important things is that we wouldn't be the first final member meetings.
No.
Yeah, lots of people have done this before, and therefore there's lots of ways, lots of information about how to do it.
To be a member of NATO,
Yeah.
are you required to have a military of a certain
No,
size?
you're not.
Say, right, we've brought all our forces, you're on your own now. Will there be a handover period, can you see?
Well,
Are you going to start buying brand new ships? Or you can go and buy ships off someone else?
well, there's a division of assets, so let's look at that first of all, right? The assets that exist, if you say there's assets are 100% there, then by population share, 9.3% of those assets belong to Scotland at the moment of independence. So it's quite difficult to take a ship and say we'll have 9.3% of that ship. So what you would need to do is to divide them up in some way. Then you'd have to see what else you actually then needed to have, and there would be a period of negotiation. I don't think you should treat this as saying somebody saying, right, you're on your own, goodbye. There's a negotiation to be had. Negotiations are serious. It's a serious business. There's a question of debt. Are we going to take 9.3% of the national debt? If we're going to take that, we'll make arrangements to do so. If we don't, if we can't get assets, maybe we shouldn't take debt. So there's a negotiation to be had. And I think that is a negotiation between equals. One group of people has chosen to do something, they respect each other's positions, and they get on and do it. I don't think it's going to be, right, you're on your own, because I think that implies in some sense we are dependent. We're not dependent. We've not been dependent for a very long time. And the myth of dependency is one of these really strong myths which we need to break. There is no dependency. The figures don't indicate there's any dependency, and there's certainly no psychological dependency. So establishing an equal relationship, we need to do that as adults, mature adults. And I'm sure we can do that. I don't think there's any difficulty in doing it. It's been done by people who are deadly enemies. We're friends. As I said, I was born in England. My mother was English. She was born in a village near Watford, where the only English pope was born. It was Breakspear, admittedly a long time before. So I don't think there's any difficulty.
But it will be a transition period.
There'll be a transition period, yes, and there has to be, and that's a sensible, negotiated period that we'll have. And I think it will always be difficult as a negotiation. Mature adults at the end of the day come to conclusions. Teaching has nothing to do with the UK, it's entirely developed here. However, I discovered last week that the UK was not going, because they've got a bit of down on teachers at the present moment, but they wouldn't let me go as a participant. I could only go as an observer. I could only go without speaking. One of the leaders of the conference is a man called Graham Donaldson, who is a former chief inspector here, who wrote a report for me 2 years ago on teaching, which is all about teaching education. Now, I'm not going to go and sit in the corner. We've got a separate Scottish situation, and it needs to be represented. That will only happen if we're a full and independent land. And for each one time that happens, we could give you a dozen other examples of what happens. And that's just not the right thing to happen. We need to be in there as part of that discussion. We've actually got some really good things happening in education in Scotland and in training teachers, which we want to talk about to other people. We should be entitled to do so.
If we are to negotiate better terms, you're saying?
I believe that we can probably find ourselves, well, I think independent membership means that we're going to do better. We're at the top table. When we go around our table asking about North Sea cod, we don't have to sit silent. We're in there talking about it. So, and it's much better to be in as part of those discussions. If you look at things like marine areas of conservation, by the European laws, we should be in there arguing for what we want as well as we can on our own feet. Now we have the chance to make that decision, and I think we should make that decision positively in the autumn of 2014. I hope before then, well, I'm not doing it before then, definitely, but I hope to be back there in the process of this campaign, and I look forward to talking to you then. And if there's anything that occurs to you that you haven't got an answer to, email me, but I'm on the web, write to me, drop into my office and say, I've just thought of something I want to ask, and do my very best to help. Thank you very much indeed. Thanks for